Bring up the water. I have here an apple and orange. Again, we live in the Sodom and Gomorrah times. What I mean by that is we live in the times where all the corporations are hijacking your thinking. They're making you not only like corporations with the food, but the success with the movie stars and the materialism. Our brains have been hijacked, and we wonder why we're so miserable. And why we're miserable and we never have enough. You know, a billionaire wants 2 billion. Never worked. Anything I achieved materialistically in my life, and I'm sure you could say to yourself, never brought more than a momentary pleasure. And then you found on the other side was just as much pain. If you gained a lot, you're afraid of losing it. If you put all your emphasis on a promotion at work, you then wanted another promotion if that made you feel good. So when you find your things from the outside for your joy and happiness, then they're failure. All the joy, enjoy the world, but the joy and happiness and the source is within here. It's directly related to my addiction to food. So here's an apple. This is God's gift, right? Here's the perception change. I talk about the sixth sense of being rocketed into the fourth dimension. When we see things differently, when we perceive and will intuitively know, our God gave us the brains to eat healthy. We put all this unhealthy food in our bodies. We listen to the corporations and what they want to sell and their money and what they're trying to make, and making us slaves. What society tells us we have to be liked, we have to be wealthy, we have to be whatever it is. It's all the same thing. This one thing I said, the spiritual awakening with the water, if you could have this now and feel the clarity with the water and just go away from those gloopy drinks. You can have that feeling right now, that change of perception, that fourth dimension, new pair of glasses. Can you imagine that? Having that new pair of glasses. Let me ask you this. Everything's perception. Why do some people, they abstain from food? I guess they call anorexia, bulimia, whatever it is, or they are anorexic. And why do the people are what we call binge eaters? Why are some people, they just have a few drinks of alcohol, and other people it's just a constant stream they have to drink all day long? It's perception. It's perception, and then also people say, well, Bob, there's the allergy of the body. Yeah, that's correct. We have what we call foods that stimulate us, they call alcoholic foods. But the allergy was created especially in the modern times with these corporations. You think you got an allergy? It's like if you were allergic to pollen and somebody came and sprayed pollen all over your house. That's what these corporations are doing. The chemicals they put in the food create these allergies too in our body. They have scientists, I have articles here, scientists and psychologists who figure out all day long what's going to stimulate that part of the brain that's going to make you want more. The taste buds, and putting synthetic chemicals in there. And all those things that they put, the oil, salt, and sugar called SOS, and all those things are a tremendous amount of calories. So you want the perception change. You want to change your thinking towards your addiction. The only way to do it is through a spiritual awakening towards food. The diets don't work. What a diet is saying, and 95% of them fail. What a diet is saying, this food is my God, it's my idol, I want it, but I have to resist it. What we resist the most, we're making our higher power, what we obsess about the most. The thing is to get centered with anything in life. When we're centered, we'll intuitively, what does 9-step promises say, know the answer. 10-step says we won't even have to swear it off. By this time, sanity will have returned. We'll have the answer. We will have sanity, right? Sanity, we're insane. How insane is that to make food everything in our lives and obsess about it? But the insanity came from the corporations and the advertisements since we were children and what they did. We also we can't blame other people. The inventory is ours because we made a decision to believe that. We can change our thinking. We can numb it down. When I say, even here, people say, well, I heard what you had to say last week and I did have some water during the week, or I did change somewhat, but I binged. If you started having a perception change, it's like, working out that spiritual muscle. Let me ask you this. If anybody goes to the gym and does exercise, it takes time and through repetitiveness. Same with our spiritual muscle. Through time and through change of thinking and perception. I eat very healthy foods, only from God-given conception in my mind, but that's the way we're meant to be. Little children, when they're very little, I remember giving my children some of these foods in the jar or whatever, and they started spitting it out. And a lot of times they wanted the vegetables, wholesome food. They wanted to drink the water. But we did in a society, stuffed all this things down our throat. Why do you think years ago, 40, 50 years ago, people were so much thinner in our country? Because the corporations didn't get a hold of them with the synthetic hydrogenated sugars and oils and whatever you want to call it. So if you want to have that spiritual awakening, there's no other way out of this mess. From the doctor's opinion, the doctor said there's only one solution. He said all the modern scientists and doctors at the time had no other solution, it was just a spiritual solution. Spiritual solution. They couldn't figure it out. You know what's crazy? You know, people say, isn't this book antiquated, right? They say, you know, you're talking about doctors and scientists from over 80 years ago when they wrote the book. What was it, late in the 1930s? Well, let me ask you this. Here we are. We went to the moon. We have the internet, right? All of this going on Zoom meetings. Have the doctors and scientists figured out the answer to our alcoholism, our food addiction? Have they figured out? If anybody has the answer, let me know, right? Yeah, hey, diets work. I've been on 1,000 of them. We used to say that in AA too. It's easy to stop drinking, right? I've stopped 1,000 times. You all knew when I did do the diets, I was miserable every day. Now I'm glorious in God's gift again to the food right here. I mean, vegetables, all the healthy vegetables. You know what it is too? The problem is when we eat these crazy foods that corporations make and all the synthetic sugar, processed foods they call us 3 times the calories, we can't enjoy the natural foods. Would you believe it when I tell you with vegetables, I love broccoli and carrots? You don't realize the deliciousness of them. Never mind the fruit, as I showed you. When I have like pineapple or an orange, I'm in ecstasy. You want sugar? The sugar's in those foods. Put them in your, sometimes a healthy food would be oatmeal in the morning. If you want to know some of the healthy foods I eat, you could put some fruit in there, grapes, whatever it is. Have something delicious and healthy, and you could have broccoli and stuff. Can you imagine that? All of these different vegetables and the combination of them, and all of this amazing food that God gave us to eat. And we wonder, and they're very low calorically, but the thing is they're high in nutritional value, right? When you eat all of these foods and you can have 10,000 calories a day, do you realize some people eat that many calories a day? The normal diet should be 1,500, 1,200, 2,000, 3,000, 3,500 calories a day. But yet they're still starving because the food didn't have the nutrients in it. They're eating what's called the fast food, the flours, they have no nutrients in them. It's processed food. And again, go to the supermarket and pick up the foods and see how many ingredients. So if you're in despair right now, if you're upset, even any kind of upset you have, we have a solution here. It's called a spiritual solution. Let go of human comfort. The human comfort, the reason we're miserable is because we want to find it in people. People fill us every time. Again, it's directly related to our addictions and all types of addictions. If you want to be happy, joyous, and free, if you want to have what's called that 4th dimension, new pair of glasses, seeing life differently, having compassion, love, and tolerance towards the world, towards nature, God's gift of the food. If you want that change in perception, work this program, work these steps, and have that spiritual awakening. A lot of people, they come to these programs. I've been in programs for quite a long time, and a lot of meetings I go to, people just, when I talk like this, they have no conception. They can't believe it because we were brought up in a scientific, again, secular society where, we could do it through the intellect. We can't, self-will get us nowhere. But we have a way where we can have that perception change towards life, towards food. So we don't have to be a slave. We can walk out of that prison. That same guy who talked about, climbing Mount Everest said, you can walk out of that prison right now. Do you realize we're in solitary confinement? If you want to talk about the food again, do you realize the solitary confinement that you're in, feeling that food is the only answer, the only solution to your problems? It is temporarily. But when we do this program, we have a new conception, a higher consciousness, which was in us all the time. In us all the time was not, our brain wasn't wired to eat food all day. It was wired to wake up and glorify nature and the world and enjoy people and everything. But we go to lower levels. Again, the 7 deadly sins, gluttony being one of them, right? Lust and greed and anger and fear, right? Self-loathing. We get into all of these predicaments in our mind. It's all perception life. And all of the food addiction is all perception. Your perception, your higher power. People say, what is this business of a higher power? And then we agnostics, it says you had faith all the time. So if anybody there listening says they don't believe in a higher consciousness, a higher power, you had faith all the time. You had faith that that food, that fast food or whatever that junk food is that the corporations made, you had faith that would make you happy. You believe that, and all day long, that's what you made your higher power. We think about the most of higher power. And now you figure the only way out is to resist it. You're still not going to the real true source. When you're in fear and you try to resist something, you're coming out of self-centered fear. The only solution out of this is to get centered. And again, I always say for people, if you want that spiritual awakening, you can have it here right now. And if even during the week, whatever, you fall short of what we're saying here, that's good too. You glorify. I think last week we talked about being exhilarating in our failures or being happy in our failures. Everything is good. Just like, and I use the example of doing sales and the salesman, who can't do, he's a very personable person and talks about that. I think in one of the stories was it Jim or Fred? They said the guy was very personable and get along with everybody, but in this he failed in the understanding conception that being centered, because we have a solution to this whole problem, and it's letting go and a higher conscious, higher power which was in us all the time. So we have an answer to our food addiction. So amazingly, I read here too, the way we relate to food is how we relate to everything and everyone. We have a way out of this craziness, depression, anxiety, self-centered fear, realizing the false, knowing the truth from the false.